Hey everyone, Mike here, and this time I'm going to be painting Nero from Black Rose Wars. The most prominent feature of Nero is the fabric that's flowing around his body, so I'm going to be spending a lot of time on that, as well as some object source lighting from the fire that he's holding in his hands. I'm starting off with about a 50-50 mix of Mephiston Red and Abaddon Black to create a really dark red color, and I'm going to use this to base coat all of the fabric. Next I want to create some deeper shadows in the recesses, so I'm mixing a bit of Kantor Blue into the dark red to create a really dark purple. My dark purple is going into all the grooves in the fabric and underneath. I chose purple as the shadow color because that's going to have a nice contrast with the orange of the fire once we add the OSL. It's a little bit subtle on camera, but you should be able to see the darker color in the recesses. Next I'm going to paint the skin, and once again I'm starting with a darker mix of colors. This color is going to be mostly Khardic Flesh from P3, but I am adding a bit of Kantor Blue. I'm adding just enough of this to create a cooler looking flesh color, and this is going to be used to base coat all of the skin. You can see me painting the hands here, but you don't need to do that. I didn't realize that Nero was wearing gloves until I had already finished the hands. Next I'm going to start the flames. The first thing I'm going to do is make the fire as bright as possible. I'm completely covering the fire in Corax White, since this is a pigment heavy base color, and then I'm going to follow that up with a brighter layer of white scar. While I've got these colors on my palette, I'm going to go ahead and use them on the eyes as well. I'm then going to do a quick touch-up with the skin color. Now I'm switching to pure Abaddon Black to cover a bunch of the remaining areas, starting with the inside of the pleats of the pants and the hair. While doing the hair, I'm also going to paint on some sideburns that lead down to the beard, which I will also be painting black. And next I'm painting on some scowling eyebrows. After this, I also decided to paint the boots and the jacket with the black as well. Next I'm switching to Rhinox Hide, and I'll be using this on the shoulder pads, the gloves, and most of the boots. I painted the heels of the boots black, but the rest of it will be this dark brown. Now I'm switching to metallics for the last of the base colors. First I'll do the bling that Nero is wearing and some of the details of his jacket and boots using plate mail steel from Army Painter. This is being used on the giant belt buckle and amulet, as well as the ornamentation on the front of the boots. Next I'm using Balthazar Gold for the trim all around the jacket and the shoulder pads. I'm just switching back and forth between the two metallic colors here. As you can see, I painted the straps on the back of the boots with Balthazar Gold, and I'm painting the buttons and boot details on the front with the plate mail. The final color is pure Mephiston Red, and this is going on the rest of the pleated pants. So here's how Nero is looking so far. I don't plan on using a lot of washes on this guy. Most of the work will be in the details of the fire and the OSL. However, I am going to use Nuln Oil Gloss on the boots, the jacket, and all of the metal details. Next up is the fire and object source lighting for the fire. I do recommend a wet palette for this, and if you don't have one, I have a video on how to make a wet palette for just a few dollars. I'm actually using a new wet palette right now, one that I made from an empty GW grass container, and I'll post a video on that soon. So here you can see that I'm starting with white and then mixing in a bright yellow, followed by a pure bright yellow. Next you'll want yellow mixed with a bright orange, then a pure bright orange, and finally orange mixed with a bit of black. This might seem like a lot of paint all at once, but this is going to be used not only for the fire but also on the robes. I'll try to keep my palette in view so you can see which colors I'm using. To start the fire, I'll be using the brightest color, the white and the yellow mix, and completely covering the flames. Now I'm switching to the pure yellow, and I'm painting all of the flames again, except the deepest recesses at the bottom. I want those to stay bright so that they look like the hottest part of the flame. Next is the yellow and orange mix, and I'm using this to paint all of the raised ridges on the flame, as well as the top half of the flame. This part's pretty easy if you use the side of your brush. At this point I felt like I needed another slightly lighter orange color, so I just mixed in a bit more yellow. So you can see the process I'm using here, just moving from the lightest color gradually to the darkest, and as I get to the darker colors I'm painting further up the flame, leaving the bottom of the flame and all the grooves the lightest colors. By the time I get to the darkest orange, I'm only painting the very tip of the flames. Now I'm going to paint the robes, or whatever that fabric is that's flowing around Nero, and for this I'm mixing up 3 shades of red. The first is orange and red mix, the second is pure Mephiston Red, and the darkest is going to be a 2-to-1 mix of Mephiston Red and Black. With a model like this, it's not hard to tell where the firelight would be hitting, which is going to be mostly the tops of the folds in the fabric close to Nero's hands. I've thinned down all my paints with about 2 parts water, 1 part paint, and the highlights are going to be really big starting off. This is the darkest highlight color, and I'm applying 2 layers of it, just enough to brighten the area a bit. This is the color that's also going to be the most broadly applied. As my colors get brighter, the highlight area will get smaller and I'll move them closer to the fire. Now for the next brightest color, pure Mephiston Red. I'm applying this to the exact same places as before, but just a slightly smaller area this time. Next is the orange and red mix, and now I'm starting to tighten in on the highlights. This one is only covering about half of the first layer of highlight. Next I'm switching to pure orange, and this is the last color I'll be putting on the lower folds of the fabric. I'm going to save the brightest colors for the areas that are closest to the flames. And I should mention that I'm adding 2 layers of every color on the robes. Each successive layer gets a little smaller so that you get a nice looking color transition. 3 colors to go, and these are going to cover a very small area. This next color is roughly a 2-to-1 mix of orange to yellow, and it's only going on the fabric that's close to the flames. So on Nero's left hand side there are folds of fabric that are about hip height, and those aren't getting this color. Next is a roughly 2-to-1 yellow to orange mix, and this is only going on a very small patch directly across from the flames. The final color is only going to be on the fold directly adjacent to the flame, just so it looks like this spot has the most amount of light hitting it. That's it for the OSL on the robes. Now I'm going to highlight the rest of the miniature in a far less elaborate way. The face is only getting a highlight with Khardic Flesh, the original skin tone, but without the blue this time. I'm just painting the cheekbones, the nose, and the lower lip and forehead. As I was going, I remembered that I wanted the inside of the mouth to be a bit darker, so I just hit it with a dab of Reikland Fleshshade before continuing with the face. For the rest of the body, I only highlighted areas that I thought would be receiving light from the flames, so the abdominal muscles and one of the biceps. There were a few spots where I added some more Reikland Fleshshade just to make the details pop some more, basically any grooves in the skin and muscles that were easy to reach. If you look at the box art for Nero, you'll see a sort of shimmer effect on his pants, and I'm going to try to replicate that using the same colors that are already on the palette. First, I'm using the red and black mix that I used to base coat the robes, and I'm painting the underside of the red pleats. After that, I'm making a dark line in the middle of each pleat with the same dark red. I'm doing a bit of wet blending for this part. I'm now taking some of the next lightest red color and I'm going to smudge a bit of it on either end of the dark line I just made. I'm then going to repeat that with the next red, which is pure Mephiston, and then again with the red-orange mix. So now my pleat is darkest at the center and gets brighter the further you get from the center. Now I'm going to highlight the clothes, and these are going to be very simple highlights. The first is using German Grey on the jacket and the boots. I'm painting the entire jacket except for where the black fabric meets the bronze trim and any recesses, like on the bottom of the jacket and the ripples on the back. For the boots, I'm only painting the top of the heels. For the shoulder pads, I'm using Mournfang Brown, and like the jacket, I'm avoiding putting paint directly next to the trim. I want a dark line separating the trim and the rest of the shoulder pad. I'm adding a few watery layers of this to each shoulder pad and focusing most of the paint near the top of each one. I'm also using Mournfang Brown on the hair. I'm putting one layer of this on each strand of the hair, and then I'm putting a second layer on just the top of the head. You can also use this to pick out a few spots on the beard as well. Next, I'm going to add some yellow and orange to the eyes, skin, and silver jewelry using a glaze and a wash. I've watered down some Lamenters Yellow with twice as much water, and I'm brushing this all over the eyes and onto the cheeks. I'm also adding a couple thin layers to any of the metallic colors that would be reflecting light from the flames, though it's pretty hard to see on the bronze color. After adding the yellow, I'm then following that up with a little bit of the orange just on the cheeks. The last step is painting the gemstone on the chest. I'm first painting the whole thing black, and then a big crescent moon of the darkest red color with the red focused at the bottom of the gem. I'm following that up with a smaller crescent of pure Mephiston Red, and then some pure orange. The last step is a tiny dab of white at the top and a tiny crescent at the bottom. And Nero is done. So first off, welcome to my newest patron, Wojciech Pasco. Welcome to the team. Also, thank you very much to everyone for supporting me on Patreon, and a special thanks to Brian Jones. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments section below, and thanks for watching.